So one of the biggest differences from transitioning was really the emotional stuff of it, and I don't just mean that like it's hard to do, which of course it's really fucking hard to transition and emotionally draining, but there is a lot of difference in how I feel things. And I thought I would talk about this because I noticed that not a lot of trans people, or at least not a lot of trans guys, talk about this. And studying to be a counselor, I spend a good portion of my time talking about my feelings and talking about other people's feelings, and we're all very emotive people. So I thought I would touch on it because I think it's something that I think needs to be talked about more. Um, a lot of people, when they do talk about the emotional changes on T, talk about like feeling just sort of less. They have less ups and downs, and they sort of feel like their emotions, like their range of emotion, isn't quite as big anymore. And for the first couple months, I thought the same thing too. I was like, oh my God, I don't get upset. I don't get super happy anymore. I'm just sort of chill all the time. Um, as I get more into it, I'm realizing that that's not really the case, for me, anyways, and I suspect for a lot of other people too. Um, it's more that I had to relearn like how I experience different emotions, which made more sense in my head until I said it out loud. So, for example, just like the way I would feel something like sadness, um, it used to feel a very different way. You'd get like that sort of lump in your throat, and I would really have an identifiable experience of I'm feeling sad. That still happens. It just feels a little different. Sadness is just sort of a different experience now. And it's like that with everything. So when I went through, you know, most of the emotional changes on T, at first I was like, oh my God, I can't make myself feel sad anymore. But it turns out I totally can. You just sort of have to get used to feeling it in kind of a different way. Um, yeah, and so that's sort of been a lot of the work that I've been doing lately is just, trying to get back in touch with how it physically feels to have different emotions. Which in a way is just a lot like adolescence the first time around. And we talk a lot about development and how especially teenagers are learning to recognize and sort of regulate their own emotions, and that's a lot of what this is too. And it for me, I had to make a conscious effort to learn how to do that again. And for guys who are transitioning, I really recommend thinking about doing that. Um, when you're in maybe a stressful moment, or I don't know, even a really happy moment, just take a minute and think about how it feels in your body to be feeling that way. It'll save you a lot of trouble in the long run. The other cool thing about that too is that it really goes to show that a lot of the stereotypes we have, especially about men, are totally bunk. We have all these sort of stereotypes floating around that men are like less emotional, and maybe are just less like up and down. And so with that goes the stereotype of women who are like emotional train wrecks and hysterical all the time. Well, that's totally bullshit. Men have just as wide a range of emotions as women do. Um, I think just most men aren't taught to recognize them in the same way. And that's another really cool thing that trans people can do, is to sort of lead the way on that. Because having experienced both sides of it, yeah, testosterone and, by that, lady hormones too, they do make a big difference in your emotions. Um, what the bullshit part of it is that it's not like one gender feels less than the other. Um, yeah, so to be more specific, some of the emotional changes for me have been I cry a lot less. I used to be a crier, and I thought that was a really good thing, actually. When I feel the need to cry, I don't fight it, just sort of let it happen, because, your body is doing that for a reason. But I just don't anymore. Like, it's just not the way that I express sadness. I have other ways now, which I'm still working on. They're not perfect yet, but it's something I'm putting a lot of effort into. So yeah, I cry less. Um, a lot of people, like when we talk about testosterone, the thing that comes up is anger. People experience anger very differently, and that one is definitely for sure true. Um, which is it to say that testosterone made me like a raging like ride monkey. Um, but anger does feel distinctly different, and there is a learning curve to getting used to it. Before I started transitioning, anger felt more like frustration. You know, and a lot of the times I would cry when I was angry. These days, it's a really physical experience. You know, I just sort of feel it in my nerves and my muscles, and I'm all tense, and I'm just angry in that sort of want to punch a wall way. And yeah, there's a learning curve to being able to express that. Yeah, so there's that. It's yeah, it's not better or worse. It's just different. And overall, I'm just more like mellow. It takes more for my emotions to be up and no, that's not true. It doesn't take more for my emotions to be up and down. It's more just like I have to make a conscious effort to see them. Um, so if I don't make that effort to really check in with myself, it's sort of like there's all these little emotions sort of like bubbling and churning inside of me, and it's all happening. I can just sort of turn a blind eye to it if I want, which is not a healthy thing to do. That's not a good plan. So guys who are transitioning, like I said, I would really, really strongly recommend learning to check in with yourself. You're gonna have to make a conscious effort to stop and be like, what am I feeling? It's not that you're not feeling things, it's just that you can sort of choose to ignore them a bit easier if you want to. That's certainly what happened with me. Yeah, and so I think that's why a lot of guys say that they feel more mellow and chill on tea, just because you sort of have the choice of whether you want to look at it or not. Yeah, I think that's it for now. Let me know what you think.